Hi guys, it's Cynthia, and it's late. It's time to go to bed. But I had a few thoughts for you. I've been praying about it and thinking, what do I feel like there's stuff I need to get off my chest and tell you, and what is left? What is kind of stuff I'm coming across that I need to share, I guess, with you guys, and hopefully you'll share with other people too, because this is stuff that you know some things I'm picking up, and some connections I'm kind of making on my own, and I'm realizing maybe not everybody else is making those same connections. So somewhere a little bit more stable, so I'm not shaking all over the place. So I think I had I asked God for a dream last night about what I could possibly, what I could put out, because there's so much always rolling around in my head about this, that I'm thinking, should I share that? Um, is that important for you guys to hear? What, trying to put myself in your shoes. What's in it for me, kind of stuff. I was a corporate trainer, and that was always what we were told is give them the whiffum. It's that WIIFM, the what's in it for me. So here's my 2 cents for you. Um, the measles outbreaks are all over the news. So run scared and screaming, because even though we've had it for eons, and people survived, and most of our grandparents had it, and all the kids in the neighborhoods and the Brady Bunch had an episode about it. Now all of a sudden it's front page news, and everyone's gonna die from the measles. It makes me wonder about Ebola. Like, is Ebola everything they chalk it up to be? Because they make it like so scary, and now they're making measles exactly the same thing. And I'm like, you guys are crying wolf now, and I don't believe you. you know. So my dream was, I'm in a house with my daughter and my ex-husband and Holden, and we're all in separate rooms. It's almost like we live there together, but we don't live there together. And then I walk outside, and it was almost, if you've ever seen or read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where um, Lucy, one of the main characters, walks into the wardrobe and then walks out the other side into a forest that's where it's snowing, and she's in Narnia. And so in my situation, I'm walking through the room saying things to my daughter and my ex and Holden. And then all of a sudden I'm in this forest, and it's full of fog, but I can see, and so I'm like, oh, that was a nice forest. And of course, somebody always communicates with me right when I'm filming. Anyway, I'll get back. Uh, so I'm looking around. I can see pretty well, and I'm not concerned about being lost, like going out and not being able to find my way back, because it's my backyard. I'm like, the feeling of the dream is like I'm comfortable and I can make my way back, and that I know where I am, I'm not scared. And it's foggy and it's pleasant, pleasant fog, not spooky fog. But then I see a little bit further down to the left of me, this couple, and they're walking around my backyard. It's not my backyard. It's like, my backyard is the mountain or the forest. Um, and they're being talked to by this man in a dark suit. And he looks kind of like a mafia type of guy, like not the typical fat Tony, but like somebody that the vibe is there. So I'm waking up the next morning like, what the heck does that mean? And here's what I'm thinking is that I'm watching the news and seeing the smoke screens that they put out there about this measles epidemic and the whole vaccine campaign. And I mentioned something about remember how they had on the news, this teenager testified before Congress about how he went against his mother's anti-vaccine wishes and got himself vaccinated. Well, I'm sitting there looking at the news like, why is this front page news? Why is this guy who's 18 He's not 15 and getting emancipated from his mom. He's 18. He's a full-fledged adult and he can do what he wants. But why is this A, the news is calling him a teenager and not a full-grown man, which sometimes they call 17-year-old males, a man, or a woman. They'll just flip it to however they want it to sound to manipulate the narrative, which is what the news does, right? They make something into nothing and nothing into something. This is what my friend who is a PR person said. That's her job. And that is their job, to make you not look over there, look over here, So if I haven't said that to you before, I want to make that real clear because, in my mind, that the only fear I had in the dream was like, what if that guy gets inside my house because I have the doors open, or this is my backyard. Um, and I think there was something that happened recently with Holden where he had a field trip document, and my ex-husband doesn't give me the field trip documents to look at. He's supposed to consult with me on everything with regards to Holden. I don't have a say. He has veto power. Um, but I have to be consulted. That's my right. He doesn't do that. He just basically signs away everything with Holden. I finally get this paper because it somehow stayed in his binder this time. He started to give me the binder occasionally, you know, and he doesn't really let me know what's going on with the doctor. He wasn't letting me. He wants total control, right? Pretty typical narcissist. Anyway, so he signed off on this field trip thing where in the field trip note it said that they basically, if an emergency happens, right, you're signing off that they can take him to the hospital, and any anything that's deemed necessary they can do, which includes vaccines. And for me, as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, includes blood transfusion. So I'm always at the ready looking for that kind of stuff because I'm aware that when they say they can do anything, that means they can do anything. It doesn't matter what you've said in the past. It doesn't matter if you have a medical directive for yourself. If you have, like we have blood cards, if you go in and you have a DOA, a do not resuscitate, or anything like that, and you sign on the admission papers that they can do anything that they deem medically necessary, they'll do anything that they deem medically necessary. Like we have, the hospitals have these plans, these rubber stamp plans, just like companies do, where our policy is to do this no matter what, So our policy is to vaccinate all our patients before they leave the hospital. And then when you sign the admission papers, you have no choice, even if you have the DOA, or the durable power of attorney, DPA, sorry. So keep that in mind. The other thing is, when my mother did go to the hospital for a gash in her foot, she had dropped a jar and then stepped on it and got a full-blown cut, and she was bleeding. And she's on blood thinner, so she went to the emergency room to get them to stitch her up. Well, they insisted she get a tetanus shot. So she's calling me up going, why are they doing this? This isn't necessary. I didn't step on a rusty nail. I'm like, I know, don't let them give it to you, because tetanus, you need to know your diseases too, because they're sitting there giving a tetanus shot to a woman who just had an open wound exposed to oxygen and fully bleeding. Tetanus doesn't survive in that environment. Tetanus it's anaerobic environments that it survives in. So if there's any oxygen exposure within the wound, tetanus, even if it was there, couldn't live. The only time it's a problem is when you have a puncture wound that is not bleeding. Then, because the blood also is carrying oxygen, so it kills the tetanus. So if you're bleeding or it's an open wound exposed to the air, you don't have a danger of getting tetanus. Okay? So I just want to let you know that I got you can't see. I got a little scar on my leg from a bike accident. I got this tree limb stuck in I fell on my bicycle. I fell into some bushes and tree limb stabbed me. And I took the tree limb out and cleaned it out, and it was bleeding. So I knew there wasn't, tetanus will happen on like poop, cow poop typically, but there could have been some feces on that stem, the stick. I don't know. There definitely was dirt. So, but I knew that, so I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't going to go. Thankfully, I didn't have to go to the hospital. But if I had, just like with my mother, that she did, they gave her the tetanus shot because she signed away in the admission papers that they could do that. So after the fact, she can't do anything else. They said, nope, you said so. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's maybe you can call your lawyer and get them to stop, but that's what they do. So just keep it in mind. The other thing that they'll do, I remember I told a friend of mine about Holden in Salt Lake City, and she was pregnant. And that's why I told her before she was pregnant, and then she got pregnant. And I told her more. And she goes to the hospital, and I go to visit her on a business trip, and I look at the chalkboard and it says DPT there, uh, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus. And I'm like, I thought you were going to vaccinate him because she said, oh, thank you so much for this information because I'm not going to vaccinate my son now. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I hope, you know, and it always makes me feel better because I'm like, okay, good. I'm glad somebody is listening that this isn't necessary. These things that they're doing, you have a choice. Even though they make you feel like you don't, anytime they make you feel like you don't have a choice, you can be damn well sure that there is a choice and you need to find it. Okay. Anytime they're pressuring you, the pressure means you have time, you have a choice. If they don't pressure you, then that means that they don't have some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Some kind of conflict of interest. They're only pressuring, like salespeople do at dealerships. They're only pressuring you because they make money off of it or they have a particular policy, but it doesn't mean that you need to have it. Okay. So keep that in mind. And what I found, throughout my short existence, not that short, is that, things like the medically necessary things are usually not medically necessary for you. They're medically necessary for the doctor to be able to move on and get to the next patient or make more money or for the hospital to be covered. One of the reasons that I had a natural childbirth, aside from, not wanting to have drugs in my baby, was that I kept on hearing these horror stories about women getting episiotomies. One of my best friends, her mother got an episiotomy, which is like they basically you have the opening of the birth canal and then you have you know, your other canal, and they cut you open because there's skin there to make more room. And typically, women will tear beyond that more because of the cut. But the reason the doctors cut you because they don't have to. Midwives apply pressure to the baby's head while they're coming out, and you stretch. I know I did it twice. um, the reason they cut you is to make it faster for them. That's the only reason. There's not a medical necessity to do that because the baby isn't drowning there. You know, they, and it's commonly done. So I didn't get that done, and that's why I went to a midwife. So that's another thing too. If you don't want certain things to happen to you, like vaccinations, go to a naturopath or go to, get some chiropractic care for your children because it, if you don't know, they actually do nutrition work, and there's all kinds of other physicians out there that you can get help from. So back to my friend, she had the DPT on the chalkboard in her room because she didn't give her baby back the vaccines, but then they turned it around and said, oh, well, if your baby doesn't get vaccines, then you need to get vaccine. You and your husband need to get vaccinated because that way you won't bring anything home to the baby. And your grandma and everybody else that visits should bring it or should go get a DPT too. Because that'll protect the baby then. Then they're protected. We understand if you don't want to get the vaccine. You know what? That is a bold-faced lie. That's just a lie. I, I was floored. I was just like, I didn't even know what to say. I mean, the damage was done. I'm like, I don't even, I didn't, was there for a day and I didn't even know how to put it into words because this was the first time I'd heard of people doing this. But that's what they're doing. It's It's like the Monty. The reason I call this string theory of vaccinations is because there's a Monty Python skit. If you haven't ever seen it, it's hilarious. You should watch it. They're great. I love them. John Cleese. Just it basically it's an advertising company, and this old woman goes with an inheritance of string. It's like a bazillion pounds of string. And so she goes to this advertiser, and she's like, I have this string and I need to sell it. And they're like, okay, let's think about how we can market it. Let's see. Uh, it's uh, it's big enough to tie around an elephant and whatever. She's like, no, it's cut into 3 inch. It's a that much string, but it's just cut into 3 inch pieces. So they're like, okay, how can we market this? It's water absorbent. And she's like, no, it isn't. Well, then it's water repellent. So they're like, how can we spin this around and twist this around to make it work so they'll do what we need them to do? They have to buy this. That's all they're doing. And what they don't realize, what my friend didn't realize, is that actually, and you should definitely tell people if you decide that you don't want to vaccinate, when people start coming down your throat, when idiots come down your throat and say, well, you're endangering the rest of us because your vaccinated child is going to give us the disease, and it's no longer gonna we're no longer going to have herd immunity. You tell them this, okay? Actually, the opposite is true. All vaccinated children and adults, anyone who's been vaccinated, sheds viruses, and they are contagious with the virus that they have. So, and I know this if you look it up, but I know this because when I was telling my mother about the whole vaccination thing, she's listening. She's a smart lady. She's bringing it all in, and she had a drug actually eat away at the cartilage of her hips, and she had to have her hips replaced, all because of the stupid cholesterol drugs. This is what these medications do. They ruin your life. So she, ever since then, has been very, and that kind of spilled over to me. She's always been really good about reading all the inserts for the drugs that you get. You don't get them when you get vaccinated. They just give you this cute little piece of paper because they don't want you to know the scary truth. They don't want you to look at the insert. So ask for the insert the next time your doctor asks you if you want a vaccine, and that'll scare the bejesus out of them. But my mother's reading this insert for the steroid that she's been given for some other issue that came up. And she calls me up and she's like, guess what I read? Like, she said, I'm sitting here reading everything about this steroid. And you know that it says that I shouldn't be around anyone who's ill or has just recently been vaccinated because they can give me the virus. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's what I've been saying. But it's nice to have something backing me to go look. I have a troll recently come and talk to me and say to link some stuff on there. No, this is my story. Don't tell me what to do. This is my channel. Anyway, I'm showing you people. But I don't have, my mother's in Oregon, so I don't have her steroid leaflet insert. So if you want to go and look up a steroid or anything that suppresses the immune system. So that argument that they give about the people with suppressed immune systems, how they're at risk, and how people like me who are no longer vaccinating, or people who've never vaccinated their kids or anybody else, are actually putting those people in danger? No. The insert for their medication actually says the complete opposite. So turn those three little fingers that are pointing back at you and look at them. Because this one is wrong. These are the ones that you should be concerned with. So really, none of us should be vaccinated. So I mentioned my drink because I'm like, I think people are really confused. And I can see through this fog that's happening. And that guy in the dark suit is the advertising people. And anybody else who's basically trying to make money off of it. You look at all those people that say, oh, autism isn't caused by vaccinations. They're typically somehow have a conflict of interest. in this charade, except for the parents with autistic kids who have just been lied to and bullied into a corner. I give those people a pass because they're already going through hell, or at least a difficult time, if not. Um, so okay, so I gave you the 2 cents on the whole string thing. What they're doing is just they're basically trying to scare us into thinking that, oh my God, well, now the measles is back. The measles has actually never gone away. It's a cyclical, look this up too. It's a cyclical disease. And we had 83 cases one year and nobody said a peep because why? People were still using the MMR. The only reason that that you're hearing it on the news now, let me bust this little smoke screen wide open, is because people have gotten wise to this and hip to this, and they keep hearing about all these people with autism. I was just in church today, my Kingdom Hall, and behind me, a couple that I know that I haven't talked to in a while, I can hear their child with autistic symptoms. I can hear the tics caused by the yeast. I can hear all the same things that Holden was doing when he had the worst of his yeast and infection in his intestines. And I'm like, when I get out of church, we have a chat, and turns out, yes, her kid has autism. She didn't know about the whole yeast thing. We're going to talk later, maybe Friday, hopefully. I saw somebody at the park, and I ambushed them, and saw the same thing going on. And then, oh my gosh, I have like 3 coworkers at work. Another person at our Kingdom Hall has a grandchild. It's all over the place. And you have a lot of parents that are like me who's talking about their situation. And that's what's happening, is that people are getting wise to the fact that these things are dangerous. And this autism thing is that people keep talking about how it's being that their child got it from the vaccine. So now they're wary, and there's more and more parents deciding not to do it. So now the advertisers, just like in Monty Python, they have to come up with a different strategy. So it didn't work to just get the parents of the babies to vaccinate, because then they got smart because they got sick probably. And then now what they're going to do is try and pit um, people who don't know against the people that do know, and just let them work it out. There's a story I heard one time from the platform about how that's how the devil gets people to gets his work done. He gets people to fight against each other. So he told a story about how, to illustrate this, how there were 2 giants and they were terrorizing this town. And so the mayor of the town offered a reward to anyone who could kill the giants. So some little twerp comes and says, I'll do it. And before you think it's a David and Goliath thing, it's a clever thing, but this is the devil's handiwork. Um, so he goes, and while the 2 giants are sleeping one night, he takes a rock and he throws it in the face of one of the giants, and he goes and hides. And so the giant wakes up and he's like, what? And he looks over at the other giant who's sleeping, and he throws a bigger rock at him. Says, what'd you do that for? And the other giant's like, I didn't do anything. What are you talking about? You're crazy. And throws a bigger rock. And then they start fighting and they kill each other. Easy. Where's my reward? So that's what they're doing on the news. They're trying to pit us against each other. So even if you don't have someone to share this with that has an autistic child, share this with all the people that you know, so that they can get a glimpse of the other side of the story and what they're really trying to do. Also, basically what the pharmaceutical companies are doing, and the medical system in general, is setting you up to be a lifetime customer. So the first day you're born, if they can get you before them with their mom, vaccinating their mom, they'll get you sick before then. They'll get your mom sick and they'll get you sick, because vaccines hijack your immune system. They hyperstimulate it, so you at least develop allergies. So with the allergies, you're going to need to come for allergy shots, or you're going to need to come for an inhaler for your asthma, or for Zyrtec, or for whatever kind of drug. But they've already made you a customer just with that one, even if it's a free shot. Or maybe you become diabetic. You still have to have our drugs. Or maybe you sustained a epilepsy or whatever, you still have to take our drugs. And then on top of that, because you didn't get the natural disease, you don't have lifetime immunity and FERD anymore. What you have is a short period of time where you have titers, and nobody really knows if that means that you're immune or not. But I guess people aren't getting the normal disease, but what they are getting is like a form of it. Like if you have rosacea, that's essentially the vaccine form of the measles. Holden had the measles and it didn't present as anything except for brain swelling because that's what happens when it's super bad. He didn't have like the normal, the bumps and everything like that, but he did have like the high pitched screaming and the not being the being sensitive to light and sound that happens when you get the measles and you get panencephala. I don't even remember the name of it, but it's a panencephalopathy of something order. You can look it up. Anyway, so he still sustained that. He just got the vaccine strain of the measles because this is a live virus. Anyway, so what's happened now is like the titers are eventually going to go away, and then later on he might, what they've basically set you up for, and what's about to start happening is that they're going to want all the adults to get caught up because there's so many parents not doing it. They're coming after you because you are not caught up and you need to get caught up because my MMR titers, I'll tell you right now, I worked for a Methodist and I got my titers checked. Holden couldn't have had the measles because I didn't have he couldn't have had the normal measles because I didn't have any titers left. And it was only, I went to Methodist 2015, 2011. So Holden had an active infection, his lab said, as I showed in the Franken measles video, in 2012. I started working for Methodist in 2015. So after 3 years, I didn't have any titers. So to me, I don't know how long these things last, but if my son had had the measles, I would have some kind of titer because it's supposed to be lifetime immunity. If somebody gives you the measles and they had it, and I kissed my son like crazy, so there's no way he would have had a measles disease that was the real deal, that was the natural strain without infecting me. Now, if it's the vaccine strain, it doesn't go through the normal channels because it's going in through the lining of it's going in through the muscle. So it's a different kind of shedding that has to occur. They still shed, and depending on the virus, it's a little bit different. But anyway, or maybe I had it and I resolved it. I don't know. I think I had to get measles, an MMR, or maybe a measles vaccine when I was a kid. So maybe I was still immune. I don't know. That's a little bit confusing, isn't it? Anyway, basically, what we're doing is instead of getting the actual disease, which is actually mild, a week, a flu is not that bad. If you can give it the things it needs, give your body the things it needs, rest, vitamins. If you've got herbs that you can deal with, there's tons of herbs. That's how they get drugs, is the herbs all over. You've seen the commercials all over the rainforest. We can't chop down the rainforest because all of our drugs come from there. Well, that's true. If you look on PubMed, that's where I found my measles tea. So if we can treat them the way that our forefathers treated these diseases and all this back to basics knowledge that we have, we could have these diseases and have lifetime immunity and no one would get paid. You wouldn't have to continue to get booster shots because this would be for life. And then the milk that the mothers give will also give the titers to the babies. So they'll be protected with mother's milk. And even if you don't have mother's milk, we can put colostrum, we can do something about those things. We can still give measles tea to babies so that you can proactively give measles tea to a little baby that's been exposed to the measles and they'll be okay. All of these people that, they really like to scare the hell out of you. I'm sorry, I should have said heck. They like to scare the heck out of you. Let's take that back. so that you'll buy something. And the more they pressure you, the more you should step back. And I'm hopeful. I heard one of my coworkers say, you know what? And she had an autistic son, but he's very high functioning. And she's always been really cool about like hearing my story and not, basically acknowledging that she doesn't know. She didn't do any labs with her son. That wasn't, anything they felt like they needed. Um, but she said all this talk about how they're trying to mandate it now makes me more suspicious of them. And I hope that you will feel the same way, because anytime someone's trying to push something on you, can bet you don't have to do it, and that there's a better way. They just want you to do it their way so that they can gain from it. So please share this with everyone. I'm not just talking about the autism community. I'm talking about your friends that say this isn't possible, or just have a conversation about it. Um, the chickenpox vaccine is causing us to have a shingles problem, because you remember, I mean, I'm connecting dots here. Okay, this is just me sitting here trying to put two and two together, and I'm thinking we never had shingles issue. I never heard about shingles before these last 5-10 years. And I think it's because, you always heard about how chickenpox is really bad when you get it when you're older. But I think that's what's happening, is you're basically getting chickenpox when you're older, and they're calling it shingles because you're older and it's bad, and they don't really want you to know what's really happening. I think what's happening is people used to get chickenpox, kids used to get chickenpox, and because the adults usually already had it, they would be basically just immune or boosted. Those that didn't, maybe they didn't have the titers as high, because your titers can be high or low. And if they weren't that high, but your body still kind of remembered, it would make the antibodies kind of regroup, and you basically get a natural booster by the children that were around you that were sick. So like grandparents would have their grandkids around them that were sick, and then, they didn't have the shingles. I never heard about it before the vaccinations became commonplace, or before chickenpox vaccinations came around, basically. So I suspect what's happening, what we're doing to ourselves, is we're screwing ourselves. We're basically, it's almost a good thing that these diseases are coming. They're not coming back. They're really not. Go look in the other years. They're just advertising it like it's a big deal. But other years that they had the same outbreak, if not more, they didn't advertise it at all. And more people die from the vaccines than die from the actual diseases. You can look that up too. So, and that's the people they count, because they don't like to count them. No, none of the doctors want to, say, oh yeah, that happened, unless it happens right there in front of them, just like the instant. So, okay, I think that's it. That's all my dream. So don't let the advertisers fool you. Any of these stories that come out, really get incisive with it and ask questions, and they say follow the money or whatever, but just listen to what they're really saying. Listen to the words that they say and the words that they don't say, and look up those words. And when they say, measles or vaccines are safe and effective, for whom? Just like the episiotomy. The episiotomy is uh, the most efficient way in labor. Cutting you know, a woman open is the most efficient way to get the baby out. For whom? For the doctor, not for you. So this is about you and not somebody else's efficiency. Why should you sacrifice yourself so that somebody else can make more money, or the hospital can have some kind of carte blanche policy to get rid of, well, we have this problem. I mean, this is the way it goes in businesses, right? We have this problem. How are we going to solve it? And usually they put out some stupid policy that doesn't even make sense. And they call it a day. Good. We got a policy. Now we can say we've done something about it. Check. Check the box. and it doesn't really solve it. It's not a solution for everybody. It just is a way of them being able to do some CYA and say, well, we did something about that. So we think this is going to work. And if nobody, rocks the boat or causes us any trouble, we can just move along with our day. But this is your life and your health and your children's health. I say we get rid of the vaccine. Don't worry about if the diseases come back, let them come back, because and what we need to do is we need to start looking up how to resolve these things on our own. Go back to basics. There's a book called Nourishing Traditions, which is basically, how our forefathers used to cook, how our grandmas used to keep people alive, using bone broth, using all these. I mean, I've really gone back to basics on a lot of stuff. I try to eliminate as many chemicals as I can in my life. Even from hair dye to cleaning products to what I use on my skin to makeup. I mean, I've simplified quite a bit. And none of these products that we're buying like crazy are necessary, but they try to make you feel like they are. And nature has so much to offer you. You just have to know where to look. You have to get the right kind of medical intervention. And unfortunately, regular what's called allopathic medicine, or basically Western medicine, is great for catastrophe, like if you're in a car accident. But when it comes to a normal body process, like getting a little bit of an illness, my daughter used to take every time she had any problem, it was like, let's take a pill for that. No, no. Medications cause their own issues. So, like everything, drugs are not for recreational use. You're going to hurt yourself. Only use drugs if it's absolutely necessary, but find another way. Nature has an incredible amount to offer you, if you would try it. And homeopathy is something that you can try too, that is very effective and very gentle. So, all right. I think that's it. Have a good one. It's time to go to sleep. Love you. Bye. No, can't figure out how to turn this off. Okay. Bye. And one more.